All right, welcome again, Tom. It's
Thank you. Thank you.
said that third time's a charm, so we're going with that this time.
We hope
And
so.
very excited to hear from you and to dialogue about these positions we've been discussing regarding theism, atheism, regarding the best path to truth, and what the practical ramifications are for what we hold to be true in our day-to-day lives. I'm excited to have you on again. This is the channel Pastoral Piper. Cliff here is obviously with the channel Ask Cliff on YouTube, or Give Me an Answer right behind him there. And Tom, you have started up a channel as well?
It's not up yet.
It's not up yet. Okay. Any ideas of when or what?
I haven't had the time.
I got you. Totally understand that. Well, thank you for taking the time to be with us here today. It's much appreciated.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And let's get down to maybe we just each take turns and then go from there.
Sure.
Yeah, I know we kind of started with maybe you describing the position you have and maybe some of the reasons for why you hold to that, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, I mean, pretty much we're talking about secular humanism and free thinking. So what I like about both is essentially that it doesn't follow a dogma. First off, it doesn't require faith and doesn't have any kind of authority. No one can say, it is the way it is because I say so. It's pretty much a consensus across the board as to what people agree on. What I take from it personally is the betterment or flourishing of human beings by, say, eliminating needless suffering, by getting food and medical care to those who may not have it. I personally enjoy, taking the naturalist methodology, using the scientific method to evaluate things, to see how things work around you, nature especially, things that we can sense, obviously. Leads into having a deep roots in science and the evidentiary process, requiring some kind of evidence to base your beliefs on, not just going because someone said so. Simple as that. And the last one that I personally like is the consequential, self-evaluating ethical system that promotes well-being. So basically, this is essentially an ethical system that constantly improves. Doesn't stay stagnant, kind of improves with the times. Things that were once okay are no longer, as I'm sure Cliff and I have definitely seen throughout our lifetime. What was once okay to say today is, quote unquote, politically incorrect to say, or just not very nice anymore. So things do change in that respect, and that's why, having this kind of nice floating average for an ethical system, in my opinion, does work rather than staying stagnant and rigid to one time. That's pretty much what I take from essentially the secular humanist perspective. As I told Rob in our email, from a cosmic perspective, there's really nothing to discuss, as it's pretty much a nihilist perspective. Like, obviously, given the time frames are so far in advance that no one really, in my opinion, can grasp this. But if the Andromeda galaxy is heading directly towards ours, which is visible now, what kind of a design is this? I mean, you're going to destroy everything and anything that has possibly ever existed, any remnants of any life. Everything's gone at that point in time. There's not even a trace. I don't know, that seems like a pretty awful design to me. And, unless God hooks us up with warp drives sometime soon, we're pretty screwed in that respect. So, I mean, that's kind of where I stand on things, but, from a moral perspective, it's definitely, something that is for the times. I'm not going to go with something that worked 2,000 years ago, and people can find reasons to, absolve certain behaviors that were okay back then that we'd see as abhorrent today. So I'll leave it there, and you guys can.
Could you just explain a little bit about, you said you wouldn't take it from someone from 2,000 years ago. Well, what if it was maybe 200 years ago or 20 years ago?
Look how much science has advanced in the last 200 years. 100 years. Look how much technology has advanced in 100 years.
Right.
Would you take advice from someone that was, had technology from 100 years ago today and said this is the new great thing? I
Well,
wouldn't.
I think that's kind of presupposing, though, that technology is going to help us arrive to some type of moral living. I think that was kind of one of my
Well,
points
it's
about the.
definitely help us arrive to a better living. I don't think you can disagree with that.
Right, I certainly hope so. I just one of my points, or just thoughts I had at the end of our last discussion or the one before, was that once we do land on Mars, we're gonna, maybe things will improve for a little while, but we're gonna eventually fall into the same kind of challenges and problems that we have on this planet as well. Would you not agree with that, or am I being
I think
too?
you're being a little fatalistic. I think if we have the technology to um, populate Mars and terraform Mars, for instance, that at that point in time we should be smart enough to not create the something that's going to have all kinds of greenhouse effects and have all the problems that Earth had. You'd figure there'd be somewhat smarter people engineering this.
Mhm. But and then what I would kind of counter that maybe you're being too utopian. That if we really get to Mars and there's a tons of scientific advancements that and advances in technology, then our still present problem is ourselves.
Well,
So
don't fault me for being a dreamer, for God's sake.
I know, right? I mean, I don't mean to rain on your parade on that one. I just because you started with the dangers of the dogma of absolutism, of kind of totalitarian regimes
Yes.
that we saw in the 20th century, and what causes that. I think that's from our perspective is a sin problem, which is we want to play God. I mean, I think that Pablo Picasso, as genius of an artist that he was, if you look at his personal life, his relational life, it was a total mess. The
Most
guy
artists are.
was, I mean, he was bizarre as far as the way
Sure
he
he
went
was.
through wives and mistresses and how a few people.
Salvador Dali was the same.
Right, but I just when I mentioned Picasso,
Van Gogh chopped his ear off.
right, right, exactly. They all have their own challenges, but when I mentioned Picasso, he was also buddies with Nietzsche, or acquaintances at least,
Okay?
and Picasso would often go around saying that truth doesn't exist, truth can't exist, and then he would even Pablo Picasso would say, "I am God, I am God," and
Sure.
you look at like someone like that, and you're like, he's so brilliant artistically, he's so talented. What happened to him as a human as far as relationally? He just became this
Well, I mean
devouring
that
force.
line between genius and insanity is very thin, right? So he might have been a genius in his own right in the artistic world, but he was truly nuts in another. We
Right.
don't know.
Right. I just think that.
Just like I said, Van Gogh chopped his own ear off. You're telling me someone sane's gonna do that?
Well, right. I just say that to illustrate the point that just because we become brilliant in our technology or in our scientific discovery doesn't mean that that will bring our morality along with it, or
Well, no,
our
but
way
you're
of
talking about
relating.
individual circumstances as opposed to a whole. We're talking about technology growing for all of us, not just one eccentric person. Look how eccentric Tesla was. I mean,
Right.
but he was a genius.
Right, but when you say that you won't accept something from 2,000 years ago, you're positing that today and now we are much more advanced morally, ethically, than we were back then.
Yes.
Well, then why is slavery still around?
Well, is it?
Oh, absolutely. The numbers on that are very clear that slavery is an issue, not just in the back streets of Thailand or parts of northern Africa, but it's also right here in North America.
Okay.
So I think that points to the I know I'm being very much of a downer, but the depravity of humankind, of something being off.
So good
And
people
that
will
doesn't
do
matter
good
if
things
we're
and
on
bad people
Mars
will
or
do
if we're
bad
on this
things. I'm
planet.
not sure what the point is there.
Well, I guess part of it is going back to the moral argument of
Okay.
if we're going to say that we have a standard to hold everybody to, then clearly that points to a moral lawgiver. The way that we're going to say the laws of mathematics point to a mind,
But
or
hold on here.
the laws of physics point to a one who a great physician. Yeah,
Okay, so you're saying it points to a moral God lawgiver.
correct.
What probabilities have you attributed to this moral lawgiver? How long or how does this exist?
What What probabilities?
What my question is, have you excluded all the other natural possibilities you could potentially think of first?
Well, no, I can't. Yeah, I can't live out that way, right? Practically, I have to eventually make a decision and say, okay, well, we had that back and forth about the 10 Commandments: do not kill, steal, that kind of stuff. Eventually,
yeah,
we have to say,
worship God.
Right. Okay. So eventually, I would say that Blaise Pascal made a pretty good wager. Is like, eventually you're going to have to say, okay, well, I'm going to live this way and take a risk with it, and see how it works out, because my experience points to there being a one way to live that's better than another.
I know, but we've already discussed this. If you reduce that to the absurd, you have to believe in everything until disproven.
Why do you have to?
To cover your bases, just in case. Pascal's wager. You have to believe in Islam, you have to believe in Christianity, you have to believe in Buddhism, you have to believe in everything.
But they contradict inherently.
Exactly, so you can't.
Right, so you have
the whole theory, his whole wager breaks down. It doesn't make any sense. That's what I'm trying to get at. Either you believe everything or you believe nothing.
Totally false.
I think that's a false choice.
Absolutely not.
Oh, okay, why do you think?
Pascal's point was not that Jesus Christ is the truth or that Muhammad is the truth. Pascal was arguing God.
No,
then,
his
after you establish whether God exists, the next question is, who is God? Who are you going to trust to reveal God accurately? And obviously, that's, Robert pointed out, they're contradictions. So you've got to figure out, does the evidence point to Muhammad being more credible, or to Jesus Christ being more credible, or to the avatars of Hinduism being more credible? But
right, so you have to believe in all of them.
Pascal's wager has nothing to do with the differences between Islam, Christianity, Judaism, and Buddhism or Hinduism. It has simply to do with the question, is there some type of God or is there not?
I think, too, you started off with a very pragmatic approach to our worldviews. You said, it's good to feed people. It's good to advance in medicine. It's good to take care of people for human flourishing. The humanist secular model. And for what end, really, right? Is it just because we're trying to survive until the cosmos burns up? Or is it because we really do find
even if it's
inherent value within the life of the individual? Sorry?
Even if it's for my own selfish, just purely selfish ends, just because I want a better world, that means I have to work with people around me to make it better. Like, I can't do it by myself.
Right. And I think that you're
obviously
really
we're assuming that we want a better world.
Yeah.
Definitely. So now we just have to get to a point that we agree on how to get there. In the world that, and we know, in the life that we know that we have.
Right, and I think you were highlighting the dangers of totalitarian thinking, of absolutism, of saying that we can't work with those we disagree with. I mean, there's plenty of truths in Islam, in Hinduism, and Buddhism that I can see there's validity there, and I can work with them. But ultimately, if I look at Jesus, who prayed for his enemies, who taught something that was radically different, not just from the Roman Empire, but from a lot of what the church has done today, then it kind of begs the question, well, is Jesus the most trustworthy when it comes to understanding who God is?
Yeah, I take a little bit more of a hardline approach to, pray for your enemies and love thy enemies. Mm-hmm. If someone wants me dead because I'm an infidel, you know what? We don't need to be breathing the same air. Mm-hmm. Plain and simple. If they want me dead for the simple fact that I'm not a believer, ciao. We don't need you in the gene pool.
Right.
Simple. What purpose do these people serve? Just because they want me dead because I don't believe. I commit no crime. Mm-hmm. Is that too harsh?
Thankfully, I hope that they're in the extreme minority of the global population. But I think
well, they are, but they still exist.
Right, but certain scientists have done horrific things in the name of eugenics. That doesn't mean that I just throw out the whole batch of science because of what's been done with eugenics and certain just kind of racist policies that came through that. But I think to your point, though, about why are we working together for a better world, is because
To make it better for ourselves and our children and our generations to go on.
Right.
What
It's in
more
the
do you need?
it's in the here and now that I believe Jesus has practical implications, not for some afterlife, but for in the here and now, as far as how we establish peace, how we establish reconciliation, how we have a blueprint for what does it mean to actually forgive someone who hates you. I think that,
Why should I?
well, neurologically, it actually is healthier for you to just not
No,
not
it's
hold
actually
on to
better
it.
for me just to ignore them and never think about them again. Tell you the truth.
Right. Right. But I think you have a healthy curiosity for why there is that type of absolutism in certain dogmas and certain religions of taking out those who don't agree with the way you live. That's why I highlighted Jesus praying for his enemies, is because that has practical implications for the here and now. And two, it does think, when you think about relational health, obviously you don't think of Pablo Picasso and the way in which he spoke about others. I mean, he called himself a monster, and he said that when I die, people will go down with me. Well, and that actually happened. And he just left a terrible wake in his personal life. But when you look at Jesus, Jesus isn't saying that you're to be a martyr, or that you're to work your way to heaven, or that you are somehow, like an ant being fried by God. No, Jesus said, I am the way, and I have taken the penalty, and here's how you're to live. And he leaves it with one command: love one another. What's that?
These are all claims. They're not fact. So even like say the Sermon on the Mount in the book of Matthew, it was written 50 years after the sermon was supposedly told. I mean, I'm quoting Bart Ehrman there, but with what accuracy can you write about anything that you heard a week ago? Never mind something, and you can say, I remember 3 chapters worth of information, verbatim, from 50 years ago. Are you kidding me? Who's going to remember a conversation or anything they heard from a week ago verbatim? Never mind, say 3 chapters worth from 50 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, Cliff debated Bart Ehrman, so I mean, he maybe could weigh in a little bit on this when it comes to the topic of eyewitness testimony, of memory recollection, and when it comes to what's the truth of these facts.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Bart Ehrman's videos.
Yeah.
So I'm curious.
What's your response to it?
My response is, first of all, they were obviously using notes. That's why there's a tremendous similarity between Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They were using notes. Secondly, there were creeds that are recorded in Colossians 1, in Philippians 2, and in 1 Corinthians 15 that were repeated. And those creeds go right back to end of the 30s, the 40s AD. Thirdly, there's a variety of eyewitness reportage, and there's a tremendous consistency between the different eyewitnesses. There are differences. I'm grateful for those different perspectives, but there's a tremendous internal harmony. So we can have a very high degree of certainty that we really have what the eyewitnesses wrote. And Bart Ehrman is fully aware of that fact. Bart Ehrman's main point is, you folks who insist that the Bible is the inerrant word of God, there are too many manuscript variants. But when you study those manuscript variants, Bart, Dr. Ehrman, they are so small as to be inconsequential. Doesn't change anything. So, Bart Ehrman makes interesting points, but it's nothing overwhelming. The Gospels are
but do you not
historically
think that
reliable.
something as important as the story of the resurrection, the 4 Gospels would have straight?
Yeah, they have them straight.
Oh, no, they don't. They're all changed stories.
No, they're not. They're different perspectives. If you and I are standing on a street corner,
and
we see 2 cars coming down the street, and we hear a woman scream, and there's a screech of brakes, and then there's a collision. If you and I go to the police department and say, Officer, I saw the 2 cars coming down the street, I heard a screech of brakes, and then there was a collision, and I say, Officer, I saw the 2 cars coming down the street, there was a woman who screamed, and then there was a collision. You and I are not contradicting each other. We are offering 2 equally valid perspectives on what really happened. If one gospel author wrote there was only 1 angel at an empty tomb, then we would have a contradiction with another gospel that says there were 2 angels. But if one gospel, as we have, writer says there was an angel, And then another gospel writer writes there were 2 angels. That is not a contradiction. That's 2 equally valid perspectives on what was really there.
Okay. What about the last one of John? When where we get here? So Mary was alone. The rock was off. She didn't enter. She came back with 2 disciples. Mary looks inside and sees 2 angels and Jesus standing next to her outside. Why wouldn't they all agree that Jesus is standing next to Mary outside his tomb after the resurrection? That would seem like a pretty key thing to get straight.
He's just looking up the scripture passage to read it, but I just one thought on that as far as when you're in a court of law and 7 or 8 eyewitnesses come up and they all say verbatim, word for word, the same thing when reporting an event. Eventually the judge might say, well, this looks like collusion. So if Cliff is saying that there's some variations, there's some omissions, there's some
That's awfully convenient, Rob.
different report. Why is it convenient though?
I mean, you're coming up with excuses why they got it wrong.
No, you're not. You're
Well,
applying
it's-
consistent historical tests. Do that with any historical figure. I don't care if it's George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, or whoever. You're not being intellectually consistent, Tom. Your consistency's breaking down.
I don't think so.
Oh, I know so. You could not use your tests on history without wiping out all of history. History is a selective account. To expect that any historical record is going to record every detail of what happened is intellectually naive. I read the book The Day Lincoln Was Shot. Even the book, which is hundreds of pages, The Day Lincoln Was Shot, does not include every detail that occurred the day Lincoln was shot. History, by its very nature, is a selective account of what really happened. That's fair.
Do you realize that there is more evidence of Elvis surviving his death than Jesus?
That's totally false.
Well, let's hear it.
There's
then.
people that can be interviewed that have seen Elvis today. I can't interview a single person that was an eyewitness to Jesus back then. There is tabloid newspapers. How many of them written about, here's Elvis there, Elvis sighting. It's been written.
And when you read those, it's very, very clear that they are fabrication. It is not
Will they be so clear 2,000 years from now if that paper is dug up in a landfill somewhere?
Tom, I want to bring attention to that phrase you used, it is written. I think that's a really fascinating one. It's written, whether it's a tabloid or a Greek parchment or the Dead Sea Scrolls or whatever it is. It's a matter of, okay, can words have not just meaning, but is there truth behind them? And then second of all, it's like, all right, so we're talking about Elvis still being alive. Where's any type of not just manuscript evidence or tabloid evidence, but where are the eyewitnesses? Where's the archaeological evidence?
Just like the UFO abductions. I'm sure I can find numerous of them.
So, Tom, already in our discussion here, you have totally misrepresented John chapter 20. Okay. You said that John 20 says that Jesus came alone to the tomb. It never says that in John 20. Early on the first day
Mary
came still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance.
So Mary was alone, the rock off.
Running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him." So Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb. Both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. Tom, you've made 2 mistakes already. First of all, it doesn't say that Mary Magdalene was there alone. And secondly, it does not say that she went in, came out, and then Jesus was standing beside her. No, it says she went in, saw that it was empty. Then she went running to Simon Peter. Then they came running back, and then she came back with them. So, sir, you were wrong twice in your misquoting of John 20, just in the past 10 minutes. What's going on, Tom? Why would you you're a sharp guy. Why would you misquote a document so clearly? Can't hear?
Guys, we're breaking up really bad.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
Like, your video's frozen.
Oh, it
Alright.
is?
And now you're really fuzzy.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I've even missed everything what Cliff said last.
Can you hear
And
us
you guys
now?
are really, really fuzzy right now. My video is clear, but yours is fuzzy for some reason.
You're clear on. We're clear with you, or you. We can see you, and I don't know why it's fuzzy on this end.
That was really glitching out there.
But now it's. Are we back?
I think so.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So back to the tomb of Jesus.
Okay.
Now, Tom, it does not say that Mary Magdalene was the only person who came to the tomb. She didn't come alone. And secondly, it does not say that she goes into the tomb, comes out, and Jesus is standing there. It says she went in the tomb, comes out, goes and gets Peter and John. They come running. So obviously there's a time lapse there. And then Jesus stands beside her. So, Tom, why would you make two mistakes like that, as intelligent as you are, with a text that's very clear? What's going on?
Guys, it's glitching out again.
Glitching out again?
I have no idea why it's doing this.
Sorry about that.
I can't hear you.
Nothing?
Yeah, you probably have to reboot.
You want to try to reboot it? Because now
We
I'm
can
hearing
reboot
really
it?
bad echo on my side.
Oh, there is? Okay.
Like really bad.
All right, I'll try to reboot us again here.
Okay. Should I get out?
Yeah, sure. I'll send you a link.